So welcome to this presentation on research funding, and I've taken the material for this presentation from this book which you've seen before. So chapter 19 talks about research funding and other resources, and then there's also another publication here that we encourage you to read. So when you're thinking about your research, not all research projects require funding. Many don't, and many that I've done have had no funding. But there's usually some expenses that are involved, and so it's good to think about it. And obviously we do require you to think about it in your research proposal to create a bit of a budget, because it will take some expense. So for example, materially, you may have printing. There may be some administrative work, which maybe you're going to take on, but still that's a sort of budget item. There may be some survey or statistical programs that you want to get the license for. There may be some database and support. There may be some travel costs. There may be some posters, invitational flyers, different types of media. So there are material resources. And then human resources, most common if you're doing a quantitative project, you will need some statistical help. However much you learn through this course, there's usually some statistician help that is needed. There is obviously a librarian that you will be asking to help you with your literature review. You can do your literature review, but it's always good to go to your librarian to say, could you just check if there's anything else that I'm missing? There has to be somebody to administer your research project. There has to be somebody to actually collect the data and enter the data. And obviously you yourself might be volunteering with this project, but if not, there may be other people that you could ask to help. And then you might also be able to collaborate with established research teams that are already engaged in some of this, so you may be able to kind of tap into their resources for your project. So if you're thinking about applying for funding, you will have to write an application, and you'll be pleased to know that most funding agencies require a research proposal. So what you've been working on for this course will serve you really, really well if you're going to be applying for funding. And your research proposal, as you know, should include all of these things which you've already worked on in this course. So you're already halfway there to getting some funding if that's what you'd like to do. But the thing you have to think about is the budget and the justification. And so I don't enjoy doing this stuff, I must admit. I don't like this at all. But you have to basically think about every step of your project and think about what it's going to cost. And usually when you create a budget, you also have to justify why you're actually putting this line item in your budget. So you have to think about the specific costs of the project. You have to think about what's the minimum you need, but also what would be the maximum. And you also, when you're writing your budget, you have to think about the cost effectiveness of this. I mean, it has to be perceived by the funding agency that it is going to be cost effective and that you are going to be able to do the work that you say you can do on the amount of funding you're asking for. Sources of funding. These seem to be diminishing, let me tell you, over the years. But most commonly, health research is funded by CIHR. There is also some local provincial agencies, so for example the British Columbia Knowledge Development Fund. In BC we've also got agencies like the Michael Smith Funding research body. Vancouver Foundation has been very supportive of community-based research. And then there are various research funds that are attached to universities. So then there's also national societies and associations, the Royal College of Surgeons of Canada, College of Family Physicians of Canada, and the Canadian Association of Emergency Physicians, and I'm sure with other health professionals. Similarly, there are associations that will provide funding. And then there are private foundations and charities like the Canadian Foundation for Women's Health and the Heart and Stroke Foundation and the Canadian Cancer Society. And my experience is private foundations and charities often don't fund research, but sometimes they have a research stream that will actually provide funding for research. So you have to sometimes adapt your research proposal according to the funding call. And then how to find funding, if you're working with a faculty member, talk to them, because they often will know where to find funding in the field that they have most expertise in. Your program director, again, the specific agency or organization, look at their website. Look at UBC, Office of Research Services, they sometimes list funding. GrantsNet is a good source of funding, and Imagine Canada is another good source. So it is just hard work, unfortunately, looking for places that might fund the work that you're interested in doing. So thank you very much for listening, and good luck to you in your finding research funding.